From Kurtco Media.
Well, when the movie came out, that's when I graduated. But I did this car probably the tail end of '87, something like that. And there was just a thing on the wall in the transportation area that said "Design a movie car," like you were going to rent an apartment. I ripped off the number.
Roommate wanted.
Yeah, exactly. I ripped off the number, called. It was Anton First, who was the production designer, said that they were thinking about doing this new Batman film. And he needed some sketches. So I got to work. I was a paid designer. I think I got $250, which
Isn't that the way
I
it always
scored big
is?
bucks.
Absolutely.
And then I got a call maybe a year later, that Jay Orberg had put this thing together.
Hello and welcome to Cars That Matter. I'm your host, Robert Ross. On this episode, Fireball Tim, the concept artist and designer behind cars like the Batmobile, leads us on a tour of unique movie cars at the Petersen Automotive Museum. Stick around for the stories behind Greased Lightning, Herbie, and even a cop car from Blade Runner. This is Robert Ross. Welcome to another episode of Cars That Matter. We're here at the Petersen Automotive Museum on Wilshire Boulevard in Los Angeles. Probably the most popular museum, certainly in America, for cars. And I'm here with my friend Fireball Tim Lawrence. Fireball,
what's up?
Nice to see you.
Thanks for having me.
You know, this museum has hundreds and hundreds of cars on display. But when it comes to icons, it's some of the movie cars that are the most memorable and the most well-known. Now, icon's an overused word, but if there were ever an iconic movie car, it would probably be Batman's car from the 1989 film. And guess what? That's your car.
You know, it kind of came at a time. The '80s was a hotbed of so many unique things that came out. But it was really probably one of the first times that the movie used the car as a promotional aspect for the film. When it premiered in Westwood, they had the car on display, and there was more people crowded around the car than around Michael Keaton and anything else from the movie.
I don't doubt that for a minute.
Yeah.
You know, you were obviously in a very unique position, Fireball, because you were in school at the time. You were at Art Center College of Design in Pasadena.
Well, when the movie came out, that's when I graduated. But I did this car probably the tail end of '87, something like that. And there was just a thing on the wall in the transportation area that said "Design a movie car," like you were going to rent an apartment. I ripped off the number.
Roommate wanted.
Yeah, exactly. I ripped off the number, called. It was Anton First, who was the production designer, said that they were thinking about doing this new Batman film. And he needed some sketches. So I got to work. I was a paid designer. I think I got $250, which
Isn't that the way
I
it
scored
always
big
is?
bucks.
Absolutely.
And then I got a call maybe a year later, that Jay Orberg had put this thing together. And it was really the first big Batman movie, right? Because before that, it was the '66 series.
Sure.
Everything was kind of campy and colorful.
Really campy and colorful.
And it just did really well. It just took off. I think they've done 20 or 30 Hot Wheels since then of this car in different colors. This is the hero car. It's fully drivable.
Unbelievable.
Super cool. Yeah.
You know, if someone could actually stand next to this car, they'd realize that the scale and proportion is enormous. This car is, 27 feet long?
Yeah, it makes us feel half scale.
It's a monster. I mean, there's no 59 Cadillac on the planet that's half this big, it seems. And to be around the car is to really sense the gravitas of the character in the film itself, the action. What an amazing thing. Where do you start when it comes to designing a car like this?
Well, the first thing, obviously, a production designer or a director will send me a screenplay. And in most cases, I design, weapons, sets, props, vehicles, spaceships, things like that. But
this is kind of all of the above.
In a way, yeah, it has kind of encompasses all of those things. But you have to break down the script, and you understand that movie cars are the same as actors in the movie. They have certain characteristics, certain things they have to achieve throughout the movie. But in the case for the script, it's described like something big and black. That was about it. With
That's all they told
some
you?
things, not a lot of stuff.
It's like a scavenger hunt.
Right. But the idea was that it wasn't like the original campy series. It had to be something that wasn't identifiable as being a Chrysler Imperial or Cadillac or something. It had to be something that truly on its own. And I just started sketching, coming up with ideas. It got locked in, and voila, it kind of showed up. But I tell you, there's nothing better for me as the notion of concept to completion, to be able to draw something on a piece of paper and then a year or and a half later, go to the movies and watch that thing in action. You know, that's a tremendous, tremendous force.
That's really incredible. It's like hatching an ostrich egg. And this thing, apropos of the ostrich egg, is about as big as a car can get.
Yeah.
I mean, this thing is truly a monster. And there are all kinds of anthropomorphic aspects about the car. I mean, you see these vents and the scoops, and it makes you think of all kinds of, you know, everything from animals to, heaven forbid, vacuum cleaners. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going on.
Well, the notion was kind of that things have to look functional. It has to look like they're purpose built for something, that it does something, but it's never quite called out in many cases. Like for certain vents, obviously that's a big air intake for what could be a massive motor, but the motor's up here. So, you know, what exactly is this? We don't really know, but you don't want to stand next to it because you get sucked in there.
That's right. That's right.
So a lot of it has to look like, you know, kind of like something has to look aerodynamic. It may not be aerodynamic, but the selling point is it has to look that way. In this case, this was a character. If Batman had anything, if he had a phone, if he had clothing, if he had something, you know, generally it would be black, it would be big and bold and menacing. That was kind of the approach for this car.
And boy, when it comes to fins, I guess those probably take the award for the biggest fins in the history of automotive design. Did they say, I want my fins bigger?
Well, you know, the Bat 21, the original concept, that had some big fins, you know, unfortunately on the car, but
makes it go faster.
It makes it go faster, I think so.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. And my question would be, how long did it take to actually get from sketch pad to finished mock-up?
Well, they went directly into the build. There wasn't any scale model done. It was, you know, they had sketches, then they created plan drawings. The difference between a concept artist and, let's say, an architect is that most architects design from the standpoint that this has to be built. It has to be practical, functional, has to fall within the budget. And that could be good when you're have a limited time. You can't be blue sky concept, right? But a concept artist working in film, we have no restraints. No constraints on budget, no constraints on what can or can't be done. It's all blue sky. And then once it gets designed, they have to figure out a way to make it.
That's right.
Right, because the director has approved it, and the architects or the art directors, production designers, they're sweating bullets because they don't know how they're going to make this thing.
And then, of course, there's budget. Oh, wait, this is Hollywood. There is no budget.
There is no budget. But nowadays, we can, well, CG, we'll do all that in post. The joke in my day was, we'll do that in post, right? But nowadays, everything can be done in CG. It's very rare to see practical stuff.
Well, you know, that's actually an interesting point. Let's talk about that for a moment. When you were at Art Center in the mid to late 80s, technology was just coming online. I mean, computer-aided design was happening, but there was certainly none of the kind of digital manipulation, AI, or any of the tools that designers have today. You actually still had to draw and build and think about these as man-made objects, as opposed to computer-made objects.
Everything was done from the sense that we had to build it, right? The highest tech at that time was like Tron had come out in 1984, and you saw what that looked like. Right. It was very minimal, and the tanks and everything, but the CG was very minimal. Even some of the movies I did, Lawnmower Man, I did a few other movies where the CG was very crude, didn't look that great, but it was the sign of the times, right? And it would progressively get better. But anytime you design something, whether it was weapons or it was sets or it was vehicles or spaceships, you were under the assumption that it was going to get built. You know, so we did the movie Escape from LA, and they had a helicopter that didn't look like anything.
Wild cars.
Yeah, so they built that, and they did the props were CG, and those were crude and bad, you know.
But you know, it's amazing. Talk about the suspension of disbelief. Viewers didn't mind that because they were so engaged in the story, so much storytelling. The narrative was everything.
But as long as the story is solid, people love it.
Well, this was obviously the beginning of a great movie car design career. You've done probably hundreds of cars and vehicles for films, TV, commercials, you know, all kinds of things. We've got some more of them here. Shall we take a look?
Let's go.
We'll talk about a vision of the future. This car is from the 1982 film Blade Runner, which the irony is not lost on me that it was about a dystopian Los Angeles just a few years in back of us, 2019. So it's quite a prescient image of our city today. Well, maybe not quite this diabolical. It is really a remarkable looking car, and it was designed by a friend and mentor of yours, Fireball. Tell us about Sid Mead.
Yeah, so Sid was a gentleman that I met back in the early 80s, about late tail end of 1981. I was working at a bookstore in Ventura. I saw his first book was called Sentinel, saw his address on the back. I was enthralled with the book so much that the bookstore said, you can keep the book, but you're fired. So I left and I went down to Hollywood where he lived, and I met Sid, and I decided to just kind of shadow him. And I went down to his place every Friday for a year, and I spent the entire day watching him design. And it became a mission for me. And he was working on Blade Runner at the time. This is Deckard's police car that Harrison Ford drove. In the rainy scene, and then the spinner comes down and asks him why he's there. He was kind of surveilling things. But this car was originally built by Gene Winfield, as well as a bunch of other movie cars, including the spinner. But Sid was a force, an absolute force. You know, as a visionary, as a futurist, as a concept guy. When I saw him do these things, I said, that's it for me. That's what I want to work on. And when I left Art Center, I went to Imagineering, and then for a few years, and then I went into film right after that and didn't look back. But when they were doing cars like this for these movies, I said, I got to get into that. And that became my mission at that point.
Well, this is an amazing thing. You know, you think about car designers who are actually creating new models that will be produced in a few years that are actually a part of the public consciousness, the automotive landscape, things we see on the road. That's one aspect of looking into the future. Yeah. But guys like Sid and guys like you are actually looking well into the future. So here, fantasy and imagination takes on a completely different level of intensity. Yeah. I mean, we're looking at the transmission tunnel here. You've got these resistors and capacitors kind of, you know, soldered on here, and you've got these weird materials and condensers and exposed pipes. This is really a vision of a world that, in the case of this film, nobody would want to live in. Right. Right. Amazing. Yeah.
When you project, you know, Sid was a master of projecting 100, 200, 300, 400 years into the future, where instead of upgrading things that we had, you had to re-envision ideas. You know, he had the vision of what was called the Drix, and the Drix was the emergence of a dog and a bird on a molecular level, and what that would be, or if a human merged with a dog, what would that look like? And then we mastered that biology, and he would create these abundant vision paintings of these worlds that existed that were extraordinary. And you could look at them for hours, and then he would apply that to Blade Runner, and you could look at his paintings and you could see, what's going on up here? What is all that? And he goes, I don't know what that does, but it has to look like it does something.
That's right.
Right? And those kind of visions, Blade Runner did not do well when it came out. Nobody liked it.
That's right.
You know? But over time,
it was too ahead of its time.
And it was also dystopian. It wasn't a good vision of the future. But eventually it affected every movie since then, and still does to this day. And this car was certainly an iconic example of that.
It's a remarkable thing. What is it actually? Can you tell us what it is?
I don't know. I don't know what, I think it's from the ground up. This is not something that you could say was originally a Chevy, originally anything else. There's a lot of stuff in here, and Gene did a fabulous job at creating so many of these iconic cars. We just lost him recently. Amazing friend, amazing guy over the years as well. I feel very fortunate to have known a lot of these icons. Yeah. And I just do my best to try to live up to that, you know, to what those guys originally set forth, you know.
Well, that's incredible inspiration, and you were very fortunate to be able to spend your formative years as a designer with them, because those guys, those are one of a kind.
Yeah, and then there'll be a generation younger than me that will do the same thing. So, you know, I got to get busy doing my stuff until then.
Well, I think I was about 13 years old when the first Love Bug came out in 1968. It was a phenomenal film, and it really had some heart, that little car. You had to love it. Of course, Volkswagen Bugs were ubiquitous back then. Now there's certainly not a common sight on the road, but this is a whole new car for a whole new movie. Isn't that right?
Yeah, this was done for the 2005 film, Herbie Fully Loaded. I did this car with Cinema Vehicle Services. They're the ones that built it, and they actually built a lot of them for the movie. At that time, you could have the budget to build multiples for different things, and just as backups, just in case something bad happened.
So they had a fleet of Bugs.
Yeah, they did have a fleet of Bugs, because they would race it, and if something bad happened while they were racing, they could continue to shoot and scoot someone to the hospital, whatever it was. But this was the NASCAR version, and I did a few sketches on that. We did a lot of cars there at Semi Vehicle Services, including some of the couple cars we're about to see. We just did a lot of different things, and it was all really that personality, once again, being able to solve that problem of matching how the character was described in the script to the final build.
Well, Herbie here certainly wasn't the underdog. This is actually kind of a monster, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. this was purpose-built, so in essence, this is really a NASCAR. And it was as fast as a lot of them and had to do the things that needed to get done for the film and to feel real, to feel authentic.
It just had to look like a Volkswagen.
Exactly. It's a lot wider than any bug really that's out there. But I live up in the 805 in Ventura, and there's bugs everywhere, and they're all unique, modified. It's very rare to see a classic original bug anywhere anymore.
That's right. 40 horsepower. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You need an extra 400 and then you go. Well, you've been drawing these cars for a long time, and you've got a really fun series of all things coloring books for kids too.
Yeah.
Tell us about that, and one with movie cars.
Well, I tried to figure out a way to be able to connect with kids in the way that I was connected with. And the books I enjoyed were by Richard Scarry. You remember those Cars and Trucks and Things That Go?
Back in the Stone Age,
right? And for years, coloring books were gone. Nobody was doing coloring books because there just really wasn't anything cool. There was rainbows and ponies and all that stuff.
That's right.
And I decided to...
I gave those up.
Yeah, exactly. My first book was a Mustang book about 10 years ago. Now we have about 35 coloring books. So we're doing books for car museums, aquariums, natural history museums, movie cars, all kinds of stuff. And all that's available at my website at fireballtim.com.
Oh, that's so fun. Here at the Petersen, there is certainly no shortage of movie cars, and we've got 3 other stars right behind us. One instantly recognizable, Eleanor from Gone in 60 Seconds, and the car from Cobra, 50th Mercury. I mean, these are really remarkable things, and fantastic to see them together. Yeah,
it's like standing with Dwayne Johnson and a couple of other big celebrities, but it's just us schmoes hanging out right now. These guys are icons for sure. This is a 50 Mercury from the movie Cobra. Belonged to Stallone for a long time. We had this car at the LA Auto Show many years ago.
The Mercuries were actually, those were the sort of the bread and butter of customizers back in the 50s. Those were, everything from the Hirohito Merc down to, through the decades. They were really, really popular
Beautiful cars. Beautiful cars. You see a lot of them still at car shows, and they do apply a lot of different techniques to them, whether they're chopping, channeling, or pancaking, or anything else. There's so many things that you could do to these. They were perfect for that. And then obviously, Eleanor from Gone in 60 Seconds. Did you know that Eleanor had a sister?
No, what's her name?
Ronell.
Oh, you designed Ronell.
It was Eleanor backwards. Well, the interesting thing about Ronell was the idea that Gone in 60 Seconds would have a sequel, which they didn't do. But the movie did well. These cars are worth a fortune now because the movie did well.
Absolutely. In fact, there are replica Eleanors and all kinds of legal issues with that.
Yeah, selling in excess for $1 million each. Yeah. I think about 4 or 5 of these were built, and most of them were bucks. And then they had the hero car, which is the Go Baby Go car, which is this one.
Is this physical car?
Yeah, exactly.
So, to look at this car, I immediately think of a 1968 Shelby GT500 KR, the king of the road. It was a remarkable car back then. This has obviously a very, very close relationship to that, but there's some things that have been changed, I'm sure, under the hood as well as cosmetically. Can you tell us about some of those?
Well, the thing about movie cars that are done nowadays versus back then, there was no luxury in that there was no ability to do CG versions of these cars. So you had to look at the script and you had to see that everything was practical. If they had a car jumping and doing things, the car was actually going to do that. And I think Gone in 60 Seconds was the first time they really used CG for the jump on the Long Beach Bridge or the San Pedro Bridge, I forget what it was. But people could tell. The CG wasn't there quite there, right? And so it didn't suspend that disbelief.
Let's call it a leap of faith.
It was a leap of faith, right? But people remember the jump, but they remember it because it wasn't real. Versus if you go back to the original Gone in 60 Seconds, everything about that movie was practical. No permits, no nothing.
That's right.
And they destroyed things and then ran like cockroaches everywhere, right? And it's movie making is an adventure in that way. And in that sense, each movie has some of those things. The one thing they don't have here is the cars from the Flintstones, which we did all those cars at CBS
That's
also.
right.
Yeah.
Those were remarkable.
Yeah, and someone had to say, well, how do these cars get around? Because we can't have gas-powered cars from the Stone Age.
That's right.
You know, so they had to all be electric scooter driven, you know, those kind of stuff.
Fred had to use his feet.
Yeah, to use his feet. But we've gotten to see a lot of amazing cars, really, truly icons. But there's one special place that we could go still that we haven't gone to yet. Where do you think that is?
The vault. I've heard about that.
Yeah.
You got a key?
Let's
Let's
go.
So we're downstairs at the Petersen Vault, kind of an inner sanctum that most people don't get to see. And indeed, there are well over 100 incredible cars down here.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, some of our viewers are old enough to remember this car. It's famous, obviously, from the film, John Travolta's Ride. Cars like this start as real cars and become something else. What is this?
Yeah, this is a 46 Ford. And I'm not sure, you know, I never saw the original sketches. And in a lot of ways, a lot of movie cars are done without necessarily drawing something up. They just go to a shop and say, hey, we need something really cool. And there might be something that's in the back that they can retrofit or something that completely custom. Just have some ideas, talk about it, and just start building.
Make the fins bigger.
Yeah, exactly.
All of a sudden, you turn what could be a caricature or a cartoon character into a living, breathing automobile. And obviously, that's what you've done in your career for your design.
Some of it, you know, a lot of times it's budget constraints. It's like we got X number of dollars, so we have a certain amount of time. What can you build in this time? They're like, we don't care. Just like, we got all this other stuff to do. Just build the car. And we'll come back and they'll look at it and say, that's really great, but yeah, the fins should be a little bit bigger, or they might see pictures of it over time. You know, it used to be that you take pictures and then you had to go to the place and get the pictures developed, you know, a week later, and then put them in the mail, send it to them.
It took real time.
You know, now, you know, kids have it easy, so they just take a picture and like, bam, it's already there, and things move a lot faster. But, you know, back when this was built, they probably didn't have much budget, but it had some very innovative ideas, primarily with the clear hood.
For sure. What a piece of work that is.
It also had to be structurally sound because the guys were dancing all over it. You remember those? These cars were bulletproof as it was.
That's right. Well, this is an amazing car. Obviously, the garish paint job and all that was developed precisely for film. Those things are, you know, more exciting behind the camera.
Yeah.
But you got to post on this, and it's you know, kind of remarkable that it got built at all.
Yeah. One thing they do in film a lot is they tend to lean more towards matte cars versus glossy because glossy reflects everything.
Sure.
Right. And if you're on set at nighttime and you got all these big boom lights and stuff everywhere, there's a lot of stuff that's going on. So, you know, when I did the original Batmobile, they went kind of for a satin matte look because they didn't want to see any reflections if it was sitting in a corner that it could hide in the dark. And since then, it's been kind of a stable.
And obviously, since then, you know, that's the $6,000 option on so many cars now. You know, the matte finish and all that.
Oh, yeah.
Back then, you were the style leader.
Yeah. Well, if you look at the Batmobile now, you know, that we just looked at, then it's super glossy, but it wasn't done that way for the film.
It's so interesting. Little dulling spray, never heard anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Cheap.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about a Ferrari. It's a 1982 Ferrari 308 GTSI, a ubiquitous car today at collector car shows. But back then, you have to understand, in the early 80s, Ferrari was not necessarily the household name that it is today. This car probably did more to put Ferrari on the map, the public consciousness, not only in America, but around the world. With the TV show Magnum P.I, Tom Selleck sure struck a pose in this.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I think anybody who would see this car in person, the tune from the show would immediately start in their mind. So this is the 82 308 GTS Ferrari that Magnum drove. They had to modify the seat to fit him in there, obviously, and drop it down. You rarely ever saw it drive with the top on because his head would always stick out.
Why wouldn't you have a convertible?
Right, you know, it has that blow dryer going on all the time.
That's right.
But it's iconic.
This really did change the course of Ferrari's history.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It really did. And that goes with most movies where they have a sponsor vehicle or something like that. You know, when you have the new commodity in the world is attention. It's no longer cash.
That's right.
As it used to be. I don't carry cash with me anymore. But attention is the big deal, right? And when you have a show, like we did the show Street Turn Challenge that went out to 700 million viewers, ultimately 1 billion viewers. And that's that kind of attention you can't put a number to.
There's no price tag on
right?
that.
And for a series like this that does so well right out of the gate, and then goes for 5 or 6 seasons. I'm not sure exactly how many seasons this did, but for a brand like Ferrari to receive that is amazing.
It was incredible. And it did another thing too. Maybe for the first time ever, it kind of made the co-star of the show a machine and not a person. So here you got Tom Selleck, the Magnum P.I, and his car was his sidekick. I mean, they were inseparable.
Yeah.
And it really set the stage for a formula that, as you said, has worked ever since.
Yeah, and when you're dealing with a movie car, you are dealing with a character, right? You have to read the script, and if you have a lead actor like Dwayne Johnson or something, there's certain things that he would say and do that are characteristic to him, obviously. But when you have a movie car, it's the same kind of thing. As you're talking about the different things that the car has to do in the episode, that builds its character, and people start to fall in love with that character, just like a regular actor. And when they see it, you're starstruck. You're just walking up to the movie star, and it's like, oh, I want to get a selfie with the car. It's no different than with an actor.
So Fireball, is this actually just a plain 308 out of the box? Were there any modifications made at all?
Subtly in this, because it was part of Ferrari's deal to not change anything that would affect their brand.
They're very proprietary.
Yeah, so they'll give you the vehicle for the movie, but they're very high end, and their brand standards are very particular, right? So the only thing that they changed on this car, to my recollection, was that they dropped the seat down, moved it back as far as they can, which is not much,
right?
And then they never drove with the top on it. Because it was something that could fit the actor. But they didn't want the sound modified. They wanted it to be the sound of the Ferrari. They were very particular about that. But at the same time, it was in the early days, and Ferrari needed it.
Well, they sure did.
Yeah, and they got it.
They were smart. They made it red.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's take a look at another car that is a little bit older and a little bit wilder.
Super iconic.
Well, now we're in front of a car that I remember when I was a kid, and you might have been old enough.
Oh, yeah.
This is a 66 Chrysler Imperial that's been modified highly for a film that starred this guy in the back seat.
Yeah. So this Imperial, the Green Hornet came out in 1966, I was born in 65, but I'm pretty sure I was watching this show at 1 year old. I don't recall.
Certainly when you grew up.
Exactly. Amazing, iconic car. It ran for a long time. It was kind of, although to compete with the Batman series, it was kind of in addition to that. They wanted to replicate that same kind of tonality. It was a bit darker. They had Kato. They had a lot of great aspects. But this car, the design language on this was that it was large, black, and beautiful. Right? And the only thing that they really did, other than all the gadgetry, which is a tremendous amount, Dean Jeffries built this.
That's right.
Nobody else, just Dean and his team, is that they lengthened the car so you can see how long this is here. It's about twice as long as what it normally was. So it's about right here was the original Imperial. And then there's so many gadgets on this car that you can't even possibly name them all.
They seem so corny today, but back then they were just so cool. So cool. And down to it, including the brooms under the rear wheel.
Right. And I did years ago over at Paramount, we started production for a new Green Hornet movie. It was a different cast and crew, and everything was unusual. And they wanted the same approach that we did for the '89 Batmobile. So I did a lot of concepts for that, but ultimately that shut down, and it started up again with a whole different group of people. And they went with the original concept, although they didn't lengthen this. If you watch the movie, it'll be in a regular sized one. It wasn't as long and as big, but it had a lot of doohickeys and a lot of power, a lot of machine guns, and a lot of things like that. But one of the biggest, most fun parts about designing a movie car is all the gadgets that you have to come up with.
Absolutely. I mean, Bond wasn't the only one that got all the cute accessories and options. I mean, every hero, villain, everybody in between got some pretty neat stuff in their cars. And this, intrinsically as a design right out of the showroom, this was a beautiful, beautiful car.
It was.
I mean, in many ways, this has the stature and the comportment of any Rolls-Royce Phantom.
For sure.
Really, it was an amazing time in automotive design.
The difference probably with, James Bond had his Beretta, and he had his ability to kind of be Bond, suave, and those things. But these guys were different. These guys did a lot of stuff, had a lot of gadgets, a lot of things built in. Especially Kato obviously was very unique. But the car had to match the complexity of those characters, right? The fact, just and the way it introed. Remember how it opened up in the series? It's that they had a regular Imperial in the garage, and the whole thing would flip over and would become this, right? That was very iconic. No one had ever done that before.
It's an incredible thing. What a great opportunity to actually be up close and personal with a car.
Yeah. Petersen. If it wasn't parked in here, I'd say we'd go take it for a ride.
I'd be tempted.
We'd get arrested.
So Fireball, there's a little suspension of disbelief when you watch these films and you see machine guns popping out of the hood or sprays of oil coming out of the taillights. Yeah. How do these actually get engineered into the movie cars, and how far can you take the suspension of disbelief?
You can go pretty far, because the suspension of disbelief is more difficult in the beginning of a show, right? So if you spend like the movie Batman Begins was a great example of a superhero movie, because he didn't become Batman until 2/3 of the way through the movie. Mm-hmm. So they established the credibility and the validity all up front, right? So when you have a car like this and you see it for the first time and it starts doing things, eventually it starts doing kind of wackadoodle things that get a little crazy, and which is why they build multiple vehicles, right? So many times they'll build what's called a hero car, which is the primary car where the actors can get in, do the driving and great stuff. But if they have to shoot inside, sometimes it can be complex and be difficult to get inside. So they'll build what's called a buck, which is a half car.
Right.
So just the back half exists, and so they can shoot from the front half without having to fit the whole camera. And back then, cameras were huge,
that's right,
to be able to do that. And then, like if the engine, there's the machine gun that pops out. It's like, well, how would that fit in there with the engine and everything else? A lot of times they'll just kind of shoot that as a separate piece.
That's right.
They'll build that as a separate piece, and they'll put the front end on the back of a truck and film it as it opens up, right? So you kind of go like, okay, well, there's no way that would fit, but most people never ask that question.
Most people are having too much fun watching the movie, and it's going by so quickly in real time that you just get all the action and none of the problems.
I mean, the only time, for storytelling, you want to do everything you can to not take people out of the story. So if the car was yellow as it came around the corner and then suddenly it was pink, you'd go like, oh, what's going on? It would be too much of a change, right?
Continuity has to be somewhat.
Yeah. So, when you start some of these gadgets that something pops out of the back or out of the rear deck or something and flies away, then it doesn't seem to be too bad. Maybe a little less than as it is now.
That's right. What a great car. Well, Fireball, what a great tour. What a great conversation. Thanks so much for being on Cars
My
That Matter
pleasure.
Down at the Petersen Museum, and
cool.
We look forward to having you back. Are you thinking about building a car collection but aren't sure where to start? Here's a car within reach from Hemmings that could become your garage gold. The 2023 Dodge Charger SRT Hellcat and Scat Pack. It's been well over a year since Stellantis ended Charger production, but there are still examples sitting at dealer showrooms waiting for buyers who want one of the last pure all-American muscle cars ever produced. The Scat Pack delivers a normally aspirated 485 horsepower wallop from its 6.4-liter Hemi V8 engine, while the supercharged Hellcat versions are rated from 717 to 807 horsepower. We've seen Scat Pack models listed in the low $50,000 range and Hellcat models in the mid $80,000 range and up. There is no better dollar per horsepower value on the new car market than one of these leftover Chargers. Cars That Matter is a Kurtco Media production. I'm your host, Robert Ross. The show is produced by Bill Curtis and Stuart Halpern, with audio and video production by Ness Smith-Sabadoff, and additional support from Melody Larson, Lindsay Davis, Deborah Smith, and AJ Mosley. To listen to more episodes of Cars That Matter, follow us on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you like this episode, be sure to rate us 5 stars to help other listeners discover the show. For exclusive video episodes, visit hemmings.com/cars that matter.
From Kurtco Media.